Okay, at chapter 13, delivering your speech. This is a chapter. This really is because it talks about so many things for speeches, using language beautifully in in speech. Can you tell that I taught English for 18 years? We have actually used that. We also have a bit on nonverbal delivery, presentation aids, which is your visual aids, and you all have one. But you definitely have this one coming up. And then we're going to talk about some tips for rehearsing and making sure you've got what you need to do to deliver the best speech you can. Okay, so by the way, that was a preview of what you're going to be doing. Okay, all right. First, methods of delivery. Okay, the first is it's not a good idea. Not a good idea. You see where it says rarely done well? They're right. It's rarely done well. In order to do your text to us, you would have to have like what the newscasters do. You'd have to have the little thing up on the screen over there, and you'd have to learn how to pause and look up and do all the things that you do during rehearsal. And it's very difficult to manuscript. I don't think it's gonna. I don't want you to do this in our class. Okay, don't do this. But a manuscript would be paper, so you don't have to look too far down. Because notice when you're reading down, and your head goes down, and your eyes are supposed to be up here. The audience is. If you're going to do something like that, make sure to only type it on the top two-thirds of the page or even less, half. Practice with it before you deliver your speech. That's another problem when people manuscript read, they tend to become very monotone, which is very boring for the audience. And of course, keep your finger on there so you know where you are in the text. Manuscripts. Memorized is not so great either, though, because what happens, like it says right there, it sounds stiff, it sounds recited. It was really again the slavey toad to Gyre and Gimble in the wave. Yeah, that was memorized, but it wasn't very fun, was it? It should be fun. That's Jabberwocky, and that's a fun poem. Twas brillig and the slithy. Okay. When you're also doing memorized speaking and manuscript speaking, you forfeit some of that adaptability. You're not able to look at your audience, take in feedback, and maybe change for something. If you have a very strict time limit, that's the only time I can there. One, don't speak too fast. I have a tendency to speak quickly. I know this. But when I get up and give a presentation in mind, listen to a recording of it. Record yourself. You all have recorders right here. Okay. You've got computers and you know it's difficult the first few times you listen. You're like, I hate my voice. But after you get past that part, then you can start critiquing conversational rather than like you're reciting something. And of course, use gestures and movement. Impromptu speaking is off the cuff speaking. You don't have any tell me about. and they give you a topic, and suddenly you're on, and it's off the cuff. You might have maybe, but you can quickly plan. You can quickly plan. Just grab a sheet of paper, jot things down real fast, and come up with some ideas. Because hopefully you would be asked quickly plan an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. If you could get those down, then that helps your organization draw on your personal experience and knowledge because it does not have to be long. What we're doing in this class is called extemporaneous speaking, and it's appropriate for almost every single circumstance. Time to speak, this is your topic area, choose what you need to do. It's preferred by most audiences because it is prepared, and so you interact in some way with the audience. You still get that feedback. You can adapt to different situations, and you can use a full content. Narrow it down just to the speaker's outline. Don't try to memorize your speech word for word, and you're going to use gestures and movements that arise naturally. Look up, and then another weirdly practiced, it says gesture. Okay, that did not. All right, extemporaneous. Okay, now let's talk about some language use. I love all the different language so creatively. I had a best friend in high school who could sit there and put someone down with such beautiful language. Nobody knew they were. It was great. But the fact is, we have beautiful visionary language available to us. And if we limit ourselves, limited, okay? So let's talk about some of the language, the words specifically. This was a word cloud that was created during they chose the different words that he used throughout the speech, and he the word cloud means that they made him. It's an interesting piece of art. Okay, but here's some hints and some tips. One, use concrete words when you can. See, taste, feel. Cup, sweet tea, mouse. Abstract words are the words that you cannot put a definitive definition on. Love. What is love? Oh, wow. Kindness. These are all abstract words. Okay. Those are simple words, but they're abstract. When you're giving your speech, don't use audience. All right. So if your audience has issues, let's see. Mm, yeah, it's words that are known as are colorful words. They are words that give fabulous additional meaning. Like instead of he his task, I kind of like that. You can use a thesaurus for that, and there are thesaurus applications online. Better way to then say get. Ooh, look, thesaurus, retrieve. Okay, you get the idea. Take a look at your audience does not have the written information in front of them like I would, okay? The audience is unaware of your to create a visual image, you have to give us specific information to create it. Like if you tell me, picture a dog, okay, I might be a teacup Yorkie. Those are cute, by the way. They're like this big, I swear. And you're picturing a Saint Bernard. Example here has dog versus poodle. My niece, see, I still don't feel like poodle is sufficient because when most people think of a poodle, they think of those little huge. She loves that dog, but it's huge. When we say kitchen utensil, which one? Do you know the kitchen and seeing the multitude of items in there? Everything from wooden spoons to slotted spoons to meat knives, meat fork, I don't know the word, but you know, the things you stick into a blender. You know, all of these things. And of course, you meant spatula. Oh, I did not know that. Toy, word toy. You can't just say pick up your toys. There are too many. You've got way too many toys out there. Limit it to building blocks that you're trying to create for your audience. And of course, we want to use words accurately, right? We need to use the correct words. Don't sometimes people don't know that they're messing up. I one of my ex-husbands, avid reader, avid that if you have someone who reads a lot but they never use the language out loud, they may not know how to pronounce it. And so he was telling me about this misma that was permeating the house. I had no idea what he said. He finally wrote it down on a piece of paper, miasma. He wanted to go see the Grand Canyon because it's a great chasm. That was just cute. Chasm. Use the correct word, but also use the correct word if you're talking about something. If you're looking, don't call this a pencil. I mean, it's a writing utensil, it's a pen. Use unbiased words. This is the politically correct part of our presentation. Use words that do not stereotype, discriminate against, insult any gender. No insulting language. And if you're not sure if a term that you want to use is considered insulting, ask me. I'd be happy to tell you. Now, let's look at some of the figurative language out there. Oh, I love these. Okay, like metaphors. Metaphors are a comparison between things, does not examples here. The museum is a song to the scholars and scribes, scientists, and teachers. Oh, that's kind of neat. Another metaphor. He has a heart of gold. Similes use like or as in their comparison. In the textbook, they have stars that shone like diamonds on black velvet. Well, isn't that? I think of similes, brave as a lion. They fought like cats and dogs. Those were my daughters. And then, of course, we have personification. characteristics. And their example here is the hard times and vicissitudes of life will ultimately visit everyone. Okay, hard times don't go visiting. Hard times are there. Is a human concept. Lightning danced across the sky. Oh, it may be beautiful up there, but lightning, okay, dancing is a human concept that you can definitely use in your speeches. You also want to create some drama in your speeches. Now, what's really funny, here's the drama. Your page here is very simple. Why? Because I didn't want to overwhelm you with all my examples. When you're creating drama, okay, you're forgetting a small short word, but it changes the whole feel, the cadence of the work. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. People, by the people, and for the people. But that kind of takes away some of the drama, doesn't it? Inversion. Inversion is fun. I think of you, how tired I am. Yoda uses inversion all the time. Let's see. Never again shall I forget. Or reversing the normal word order of phrases and sentences. Now, suspension is a little bit weird. It's where you put the important things, the key words, and they give you the twist. Okay, but you'll notice I'm not testing you on suspension, so it's okay. But I am testing you on inversion. Think like Yoda. It is the feel of the language, the rhythm of the speech. Cadence is almost the music of the work. Of it has a rhythm. There is parallelism that can be used. That's when you have the same phrase at the beginning of each section. Uh, Thomas, but his poem "Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night." It has several of these things, by the way. It has antithesis, but it also has repetition. He in the rage against the dying of the light, and then the next stanza, he's about halfway through. He says, "Do not go gentle into that good night," and different phrases, it could still work. Antithesis is when you have contrasting meanings of the two parts of the parallel structure. The structure that I have for you. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. That means, listen to everybody, but don't talk so much. Silence is gold. Okay, a little bit different there. Repetition is when you say the thing over and over again. Those are doing it. That was by Henry Ford, by the way. If you think you can do it, you can do it. Just repeating, literally. Or I'm blanking. It's late. Sorry. You can look it up though. Repetition JFK. It's beautiful. It's from one of his last speeches, and it's awesome. Ooh, that one up. Alliteration. How I love that. Putting it's just the repetition of the consonant sounds. Usually the first consonant. Uh, and miles and mile. I have miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Okay, that's repetition. I have my little arrow going in the wrong direction here. and we wouldn't leave the house. Alliteration. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck? If a woodchuck could chuck wood, a woodchuck could chuck all the wood. Peter Pepper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How many pecks of pickled peppers did Peter Pepper pick? Now, those are long examples of alliteration. Usually it's just a few words. Now, let's go into nonverbal delivery. We talked about this a little bit already with eye contact. It improves your credibility. You need to make that eye contact. It helps if they feel a connection with you. The second you take your eyes off your audience, that connection is broken. That includes if you're looking down at your notes, looking at your visual aid. You already created your visual aid. You know what it says. You know what is up there. It's on the right thing. Do not talk to your visual aid. It takes your eye contact off your audience. Don't look over their heads. Look here or look somewhere in there. All right. How can you avoid some misunderstandings across cultures? Well, are one, where does the audience expect me to stand while speaking? Okay, in our culture, in the US culture, we are in the front of the room. Listeners expect direct eye contact. Well, I can tell you almost every European country, yes. US, yes. Other countries, maybe not so much. Will they here? What's the phrase? And will listeners find movement and gestures distracting or welcome? Some nations, they literally give the entire presentation. Listeners expect presentation aids, visual aids. Again, all of these are cultural, and you would have to find that out from the. Some more things that we want to talk about: physical delivery. Make sure it's natural. Make sure your gestures and your movement are natural. To do weird things, but I had a student do that. He had on his notes gesture towards visual aids. So he obviously that was not something he practiced. He forgot it was in there. Maybe somebody else added it into his notes. I don't know, but it was not natural. That's for sure. Make sure your movement is standing there and they're just moving from foot to foot to foot to foot. Hold still, plant your feet. Plant your feet. Plant your feet. Dancing out the room. You don't want to take that risk. And posture. Posture says everything. When you're standing up straight, back, shoulders comfortably in a good solid posture, you aid your own credibility. You sound more knowledgeable. Credibility. Your facial expression, most expressions are universal across cultures. We already know that smiling is worldwide. If you're smiling, things, there are nations where shaking your head, which we hear that and we think this, but they're saying shaking their head and I get very confused by that. But it's the way they are, so I have to accept that if I were to present in a different culture. Some facial expression And you could just be confused. You could be looking at your notes saying, "What the heck did I write? What does that mean?" But what you're saying to the audience them in some way, shape, or form. And your facial expression should relate to your message. Don't get up there. Like, if I were going to give you a speech, my father passed at the end of July from COVID, and it was kind of a hard time, and we're still getting through it. If I was going to tell you all of this, like the message, would it? That would be very awkward, and it would make you uncomfortable, and it would make me look totally insensitive to my relates to your message. Now we're going to talk about some of the non-delivery, non-verbal delivery aspects. Volume is, and I don't think we're going to have a microphone in the room. So if you feel like you're going to get up and speak too quietly, your voice and elucidating every term and articulating the language. Okay? In the bathroom, you realize that's a tiny little room that has echoey walls, right? So don't use that room as an example. What you can do is practice making sure they can understand what you say. You could even go further than that, 20, 30 feet. Okay, but volume is how cautious about that. Pitch also in conveys meaning. Pitch is how high and how low you speak. All right. And practiced speaker. But some people don't. And so they end up speaking in a monotone that just kind of goes across like I had a teacher that was nothing but monotone the whole time. It was horrible, horrible. Everybody went to sleep within like 2 minutes. Every time they make a statement, if they're unsure, if they have self confidence issues, if they're unsure of the situation or whatever other statement, what's your name? Tanya? And I want to say, is it really? Are you sure? Because you don't sound so sure. And that comes across as uh, having a lack of self confidence. So you need to be very careful there. Rate is how fast you speak, your pace, your rate, your pace. I tend to speak quickly. Believe it or not, I am from South Texas. I don't know where I got this speed in speaking from, but I do. And I have to work hard to slow my flashes all over the place for pauses because I know that my audience needs a second to take in and process is how you pronounce language. And it will be impacted by dialect. If you are vowels a little bit more, and did I just accidentally? Yeah, sorry, got rid of the video for a second there. We have different this all the time, and you're never going to know if you're going to keep up with them because they talk so fast. It takes a little while for a southerner to keep up, and if you ever want to go anywhere, you better be ready to listen very quickly. I had to pause the lady. I do not speak with a Texas accent, but I threw one on real fast. And I said, I'm so sorry, but I'm listening with the Texas. Repeated it slower, a little bit, a little bit. But dialect can make a difference. So be careful with that. Appearance, I've had several people conservatively. What that means is appropriate school dress. Some people are going to dress business casual, and that's fine. Self confidence. I do not mind how you are dressed. If you choose to dress school appropriate, that's fine with me, but do not put your hands in your so I can see your face. It's more important that I see your face than that your hat brim cover your eyes. Actually, I would prefer it if you did conscious of those needs. If in doubt, dress conservatively. Let's look at some presentation aids. Remember, big, giant, your speech, not replace it. Do not read to me what you put on a screen. You should never have that much written on a page. The only reason I have as much on these slides is and because we're using them in class. If I were giving a presentation, I would take half this off. It would look more like that. Because point, you should never have images that overlap each other. For here it says images, drawings, photographs, maps, and charts. Those should. All right. Let's. Oops. What did I do? Okay. Got it. Sorry, I had a little bit of a. So images, drawings, photographs, maps, and charts, don't let them overlap each other. Make them very simple. Make them very plain. Make them so that they supplement images. You can use graphs. I love graphs. A bar graph, of course, has bars of various lengths that usually represent the of a set of data, and you can just take apart pieces of it. We're going to look at all these in a second. A line graph is a series of lines. Let's look at them. Here is a bar graph. All right, a very simple bar graph. Twitter, Instagram, a percentage of American adults using these applications. I bet if they were to do that again in 2020, it would be very different. But we'd have to add things like that. Here's a pie graph, percentage of actual adults in the US and those that are using. All this is similar or same information, but you can see how they changed the format to give a different impression. Okay, you get to choose your method. Some other types, text. I gonna be honest, I don't like a lot of text because that means that people are going to want to sit and read it, and we don't need to do that. You don't need to read to us, and you don't need to give us time to read. Video and audio is helpful. Here's a hint with video. If you are going to use video, know longer than 30. It's possible to save video to your computer, and you can edit that puppy to exactly the length that you need it, and you can save that on a flash drive. Just saying. Same with audio. No longer than 30 seconds. Otherwise, it becomes overwhelming to your presentation, your speech. Objects and models are great presentation aids. If I were to give you a whole speech about this particular Band-Aid box, I do a speech on this. You don't see the old label on that, but this Band-Aid box has been used by my father, I kid you not, for 22 years. This would be an object. A model would be is if I took something apart or I used something to demonstrate a process. You can add students use other people as volunteers in advance, prearranged, or they had people come in. But if you're going to do that, you have to clear that with me because we are only. So if you're going to have people come in, we can't do that. We would have to have you come in at a time when we don't have as many people signed up to speak. Here's some hints. Information, don't use too much, and make informed and mindful decisions about fonts, color, and layout. Light background, darker words, usually best. You're going to get irritated. You notice I have lots of different glasses that I use for lots of different purposes. Use video and audio effectively, brief clips and and I can tell you we have a computer, a projector, we have a document camera, we can do pretty much what you need, but just make sure I know about it and downloaded and maybe linked on the desktop. So all you have to do is click go. That would be helpful. Be certain the volume is appropriate and be certain that your audio, that's not helpful. In our classes, of course, we do not because we have screens set up for class. Objects and models, make sure it's neither too large or too small. Use. If you're going to use people, rehearse. Please practice with the people. If those people in the middle of your speech, it does not reflect well on you. Okay. And then don't let your presentation aid steal the show. If they're going to be there, here's something to think about ethically. Matt wants to talk to his college classmates about the use of profanity and rap music. We know how common lyrics to illustrate his point. Should he play them? Or might it offend people in the audience? I'm going to tell you, don't play them. Don't. The lyrics. We may not want to hear them again. You can allude to situations that are common knowledge without having to go immoral, unethical, etc. situation. Some more guidelines. Prepare the right aids, okay? You don't just prepare your aid over here, practice your speech over here, and never put the two together. Never the twain shall meet. And I can tell you when you get up to speak, it's going to be obvious. I always tell when someone does not practice with their speech, with their visual aid. I can also tell when people haven't practiced. So, just letting you know. Maintain your eye contact with the audience, not with the aides. You already know what's on there. The aide already knows what's on there, and the aide doesn't feel with the audience. And explain the aids, the visual aids. You should always explain what's going on in your visual aid, and time your display of those aids to speech. But the visual aid is showing point 0.3 too early. It doesn't match up, and it's going to be confusing to the audience. Or a great visual aid, but what's the problem? She's looking at the visual aid. She lost the eye contact with her audience, and so it's not as strong. Sometimes don't do it. Flyers and stuff like that should be handed out either before or after the speech, preferably after. Don't pass things around because while 3.4, you're well past it. Okay, so if you're going to use handouts, they have to be done. It's better to either do it before your speech so you can refer to it. That's my choice. Use small children and animals with caution. I think that is a gimme. I don't think I have to explain that any further than you see it. Couple days in advance. If you're wondering why I have you turning in your outline so far in advance, it's because I want that part to be done. I want you practicing. I want you getting done at the last second. We can always tell. Practice, 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 practice. I only put it once here. I probably should have put it about 30 more times. And use your delivery as well. Practice for someone. We already talked about that and who you can practice with, and your dog and your cat and your near. You can do that with your webcam and you can watch your presentation, see what you think. Now, the prepare room and equipment, you can't really do that in this situation because, of course, recreate your speaking situation. I don't know how you would do that unless you went into an organization and said, "Hey, can I practice my speech with you? Practice my speech on you." I believe several of you are in the science club, and then there's some various clubs going on around campus, and they used to use very supported. Rest the night before. You can tell when you look sleepy or angsty. Arrive early. Well, yeah, you have to arrive early. We all have to be a few minutes beforehand before you walk into the room because we have to go through that screening at the side door. And if you need extra help, you can look back. Remain composed if interrupted. If something happens, and this happened, I used to do this as a dual credit course on high school campuses, and so and so. And my students had to learn to just pause, remain composed. It's normal. It goes back as long as you remain composed and maintain that eye contact because they're just listening. They're still looking at you. It's okay. And then seek feedback, support you. So if you see smiles and stuff, you can concentrate more on those. And oh, here's one that I remember. I actually remember seeing Francis's early speeches, and he loved it. He was like all over it. Let this kid come up here. He was just having a wonderful time. The goal of your speech. I always say ethical. I always say effective and appropriate. they changed it to ethical, but it's almost the same thing, right? That's your goal, an ethical, appropriate speech. Again, all right. I will get back with you for the next speech and we'll see how it goes. Y'all have a great evening or morning, whenever you're talking.